Guys, my card over the weekend, the Showtime card in the States, involving both the Charlo brothers and Varnes Monterosian versus Erislandy Lara. So I'm going to break down every fight and get through it. It's going to be a slightly longer one in this one. But yeah, going to talk about the younger Charlo, Jamil, with an E in the name. I'm going to talk about him versus John Jackson. Decent fight. I mean, for me, nothing really special went on, but kind of showed the level that the younger Charlo is really at. John Jackson was outboxing him. John Jackson actually very fondly remembered by some of the UK fans or the Irish fans in his battle with Andy Lee. He was doing relatively well in the fight, actually winning the fight, and until he got knocked out. And I think that actually resonated and was in the mind of many American fans because it was over in the States. So yeah, John Jackson for me was handily winning the fight, and Charlo obviously caught him in round eight, I think it was, and Jackson staggered to the ropes and kind of blacked out for a few seconds. It seemed, and it was quite scary actually. And I'm glad the referee stopped it when he did and uh, prevented Jackson from getting any more punishment because you never want to see a fighter get hurt in there. And, it's after the Nick Blackwell tragedy and many others as well. Pritchard Colon, those sort of people. You want the sport to be competitive but also healthy as well. Uh, Jackson, where does he go from here? He can rebuild. It's not the oldest, but he's had two big fights, and I wouldn't say he struggled or anything because he was winning the fight, but a lapse in concentration cost him, and he needs to eradicate that if he's gonna, challenge further up again. Um, Jamil Charlo, the younger Charlo, where does he go from here? For me, he didn't look great. I rate his brother a lot higher. I'll go on to that in a minute, but that was, just I can't see what he does better than the other 154 pounders out there. I'd like to see him versus Liam Smith in a unification. That would be very, very interesting. I'd say they are probably the two weakest champions for me, and I'd like to see how both of them fare against each other. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Liam Smith would beat him, but I'd just like to see how it pans out, and I wouldn't make a judgment until probably the first round or two of the fight, probably. But yeah, let's see what Frank Warren does with that. But moving on, the older Charlo, Jamal Charlo, facing Austin Trout. Pretty decent fight actually. Jamal was winning the first, I'd say not all the rounds, but he was comfortably cruising in the first six till around seven, and then kind of faded. Um, I did hear he rehydrated to about 165, which isn't too much. £10 is you kind of understand because it has to be within the IBF limit. It might be slightly lower, 163.9 or something like that. I'm not sure, but he looks a pretty big unit for 154, and if he's fading quite late in fights, obviously most of his prior fights haven't gone the distance, but this kind of showed. And I think against a wily vet like Austin Trout, who knows his way around the ring, that was one factor. But I think he really did slow down significantly in the second part of the fight. He did win for me. I'd say about 7-5. Could give it 8-4 depending on the work you want to see and that sort of stuff. But it's all subjective. But Trout for me should Trout's pretty big for super welter as well. I think he could move up if he's not getting the fights at 154. Um, but I think Charlo definitely should move up to 160. He's huge for the weight, and if he's fading that bad in a fight, I really think he needs to reassess and move up to 160 and vacate his belt. Not in favor of that, but if you can't make the weight, you can't make the weight, and you'd rather move up rather than so you'd rather move up rather than lose your belt on the scales. It's part and parcel of boxing. It happens, but I think he should move up. Lastly, Erislandy Lara versus Varnes Monterosian. Uh, I heard a lot of pundits and analysts and those sort of people and people on Twitter, boxing fans, saying this fight was a hard fight to call, especially because of Lara's sort of style not transcending well with the judges. But I'd say I'd say Lara won the fight pretty comfortably for me. I go with 8-4, just due to work and that sort of stuff. The cleanliness of work. Yeah, he got his work off and he was back on his bike and moving and just making things awkward for Varnes. Varnes for me, he's a trouble for he lives up to his moniker. He's the nightmare, and he really is a nightmare for any 154 pounder out there. I mean, he did give Lara troubles, especially in the first fight and in the second fight. So he really is a problem for anyone. And I'd like to see him come again. He's still relatively young. He's got time on his side, so I'd like to see where he goes from there. Um, Lastly, I want to talk about the 154 pound division. A very strong division. A lot of people in and around the mix, and I really want to see loads of them get it together. As I understand, the Charlo brothers and Erisani Lara all train under the same trainer, so I don't think a unification is actually viable. So the only other alternative is one of them has to unify, or anyone who wants to unify has to unify with Liam Smith, and I don't know if he Frank wants him to travel, so we have to wait and see on that part. Sorry, and yeah, what I will say is there are some good fights. I know Jamal Charlo, the older and bigger punching Charlo. His mandatory is Julian Williams, J Rock. I'm really fascinated to see that fight. I would love to see that fight if just before he moves up to 160. If he doesn't in the meantime, but it'll be really really good, and let's see what happens with that. There's other people. I was talking and tweeting with Box Talk, and they said something about Lara. Is he a problem at 160, and how do you rate him at 154? Is he number one? Is he number one? Um, you know, on on the basis of things, adding everything up, I do think he's probably number one in the division. Um, I'm not going to include Canelo in this at the moment because he's technically not a 154 pounder as of yet, unless he moves down. Lara's probably number one, but Andrade's there as well, but his inactivity has really really cost him. Even though I do want to put him in the top three, if you take momentum and activity into consideration, I don't think he's anywhere near the number three spot on or top three. So it's kind of it's quite open. There are a lot of fighters in there, but I say Lara's probably number one for me, and the other guys kind of filter in. The Charlo brothers, Trout, you know Liam Smith. Maybe he's probably like just outside the top 10. He hasn't really fought anyone. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good fighters there. Cotto's probably there. I don't know if he's moving to 147, but Cotto's there, and you have to say even though he's lost against Canelo, his his resume speaks for itself, and probably deserves to be in the top 10 ranking. Possibly, you know, let me know your thoughts on that. Um, but there's a lot of guys at 154. I like to see mix it up. Jack Colsey is there. I think he holds the interim WBA title or the regular WBA title. I like to see him against Lara, or not that he'd win, but you want to see people mix it up and get competitive. So yeah, I'm really really interested to see many of the 154 pounders get it together and mix it with each other. Um, Let me know your thoughts on who the best 154 pounder is. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Um, anything else? Let me know your thoughts on the weekend's action on this card. How do you think the Charlo brothers looked? How do you think Eric Stanley Lara looked? And yeah, any potential for a unification? As I said, they're all with the same trainer. Liam Smith is there, so will he step up? Let me know your thoughts on all things to do with the super welterweight division. Really interested to hear your thoughts. On a brief side note, sorry I'm yawning. Haven't had much sleep over the last couple of days. Been really really busy, but yeah. I will post another video. There are some videos I have in the works with the news coming out this week as well. So yeah, stay tuned for them. Please give a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and share so it gets out to a larger audience and help the channel grow. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.